Many borders around the world are bizarre, and today we'll take a closer look at some of the world's most unusual and distinctive borders. Borders hold a lot of significance geographically, politically, historically, and culturally. They separate countries and can hold real significance for our world. Sometimes marked by flags, checkpoints, guards, or violence, borders can look different depending on the place. Whether formed through conflict or cooperation, whether agreed upon or disputed, borders can tell a story of the people, our planet, and the histories of where nations meet. In some places, national borders can take on a life of their own, representing a unique convergence of countries or topographical features. So, what's the deal with borders? Are they meant to divide, or are they arbitrary? What caused us to draw these divisions as they are? While there are many famous borders known for conflict and violence, such as between North and South Korea, Israel and Palestine, and Russia and Ukraine, there are many others that are more peaceful, such as the border between the United States and Canada, which is considered the longest undefended border in the world. There are many national borders marked by stunning geographic features, man-made architecture, and more. Let's explore together some of the world's most fascinating borders. Violence and conflict between countries is not uncommon at national borders. Even so, the appearance, history, and cultural contexts of some borders can be especially unique and distinct. This is especially true of the Middle East, where many territories and borders are heavily disputed. The border between Afghanistan and Pakistan is especially distinctive. The Torkham Gate lies between the two states, which is a key border crossing and visually stunning piece of infrastructure that divides the states. The gate itself is one of the busiest border crossings between the two states. However, the Torkham Gate is especially known for its violence and danger. The crossing at Torkham is manned on the Afghan side by armed Taliban soldiers, and there are often tight controls imposed on the pedestrians crossing there. Crowds are sometimes pushed back from the border by Taliban soldiers. However, the recent departure of President Ashraf Ghani means Afghan forces deteriorated, which necessitated Pakistani authorities' cooperation with the Taliban to ensure borders remain adequately staffed and orderly. Nonetheless, over the past few years, both sides of the border have accused the others of sheltering militant groups and allowing attacks from across the border. Pakistan built a long metal fence through the snow-peaked mountains and dangerous ravines along its 1,600-mile-long frontier, and has equipped the border with cameras, watchtowers, more than 800 drones, and over 440 forts in the northwestern region alone. This example of a heavily guarded border is indicative of deeper political disputes and intertwined histories that separate the two nation-states. But a fortified border, while interesting, isn't particularly bizarre, and we'll see that later on in our list. But first, let's head to Africa. The continent of Africa is home to many unique borders between countries. There are 54 recognized countries in Africa, with an additional 2 states that are disputed. One unique border is between Spain and Morocco, where the European country and African country are divided by high fences meant to discourage illegal immigration between countries. This border demonstrates how the criminalization of immigration of undocumented people can be advanced by the design of borders. Spain occupies several small pieces of land adjacent to Morocco, which it acquired during the Spanish War with Muslim forces during the 15th and 16th centuries. Originally, Spain strategically took hold of these areas for the purpose of monitoring these forces. These are small sovereign territories, including the rock fort of Peñón de Vélez de la Gomera. Peñón de Vélez de la Gomera was a small, naturally rocky island until the 1930s, when a storm dropped large quantities of sand between the island and the mainland, which created a tombolo, or a tide island. This peninsula marks the world's shortest land border in the world, at only 85 meters long. Currently, Moroccan authorities have demanded the territory be returned to Morocco. Another notable border is that between Lesotho and South Africa, since Lesotho is completely landlocked by South Africa. There are 11 functional road borders between the two states. Lesotho is a natural paradise with beautiful waterfalls, rich culture, tall mountain peaks, and breathtaking vistas. We've talked about many borders that are hotly contested and disputed, but what about borders that are a no man's land in a sense? Lands that nations actively shun? This is the case for part of the border between Egypt and Sudan. A roadless patch of desert called Bir Tawil, located between the two countries, is uninhabited and unwanted because both countries prefer their own historic boundary lines. Because their claims to land would be weakened by accepting Bir Tawil as their own, neither Egypt nor Sudan will claim said land, even though Bir Tawil is habitable. Many have sought to claim the land, whether organizations or individuals, but none have had much international success. Unlike Bir Tawil, however, Asia is full of breathtaking landmarks that have been used to divide countries, as we'll soon see. In Asia, like in many parts of the world, there are many unique national borders. Sometimes even geological features are used to divide nations. One example that stands out in particular is the border between China and Nepal. Mount Everest stands 29,000 feet tall between China and Nepal, separating the two countries. Another is the border between China and Vietnam, where waterfalls mark the divide. The Ban Dot De Tian Falls separate the two countries, indicating yet another geological marker of national boundaries. Similarly, a very popular hiking path called Sandakphu Trail travels the border between India and Nepal. Another geological border is located where Laos, Myanmar, and Thailand meet, which is called the Golden Triangle. The Golden Triangle is where the Rak and Mekong rivers meet. On the Thai side of the Golden Triangle, a giant golden Buddha statue marks this convergence of three rivers and the three countries. Just wait until we head over to Europe, where things start to get really interesting. Europe is home to 44 sovereign states. What you might not know, however, is that within the continent there are many bizarre, beautiful, and curious borders that attract attention worldwide. Between the walls of the Vatican, a labyrinth uniting 3 European countries, a cairn where 3 time zones meet, and more, there are plenty of bizarre borders for us to explore. So where in Europe has the most unusual borders? Let's take a look. One of the most famous borders in Europe is that of the Vatican City, which is encompassed by a stunning walled border. Vatican City is an independent city-state that's landlocked within the urban area of Rome, Italy. The Vatican is the world's smallest independent state, with an area of 49 hectares and the world's shortest boundary at just 2 miles or 3.2 kilometers. Yeah, you heard that right. It's that small. The Vatican is an example of what is known as an enclave, a territory that is completely surrounded by the territory of another state, which in this case would be Italy. The Vatican City was created as an independent state by the Lateran Treaty in 1929, which took place between the Holy See and the Kingdom of Italy. Buildings were meant to create the boundary between the Vatican and Rome, and a small part of the frontier of the modern wall was built to supplement this boundary. The territory of the Vatican includes St. Peter's Square, which is distinguished from Italian territory through a white line along the limit of the square. The Vatican isn't the only country landlocked by Italy, however. San Marino is a completely independent microstate of just 23 square miles or 61 square kilometers, making it the 5th smallest country in the world. Surrounded entirely by Italy, the border is between the 2 regions of Emilia-Romagna and Marche. Another famous border converges at Europe's largest outdoor shrub maze, where the Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany meet. The Drielandenpunt Labyrinth was designed by a British landscaper named Adrian Fisher, who used 17,000 hornbeam cuttings to create the maze. The maze is located in the most southeastern and highest part of the Netherlands, and it is said to take up to an hour to complete. Visitors can climb a platform at the center where they'll be able to see all 3 countries in the distance. At the entrance of the maze is a roof in the shape of a giant butterfly, which makes this border even more unique. Beyond this, there's a big water playground near the maze that was created by dozens of fountains, as well as numerous other recreational activities for labyrinth visitors to explore, such as a playground, clay shooting, and archery. There are also smuggling games, where visitors can reenact the passage of smugglers looking to save money crossing borders, and a restaurant called the Borderstone Tavern. Clearly, this border of the Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany is a unique place to visit, but it's only one of many bizarre and fascinating borders in Europe and worldwide. Where else are there other intriguing borders like the Drielandenpunt Labyrinth? Let's find out. The Treriksrøyse is another great example of a unique border between countries. Where Norway's northern end reaches both Finland and Russia is another 3-country border with a cairn marking their convergence. The fact that the 3 countries all meet at this border is not the only unique aspect of this border, however. At this nexus of Finland, Norway, and Russia, you can leap forward or backward 2 hours, depending on which border you cross. Usually, at a time zone border, you would only go ahead or behind by 1 hour at a time. However, Norway's hook-like shape causes it to meet both Finland and Russia, which causes the Central European Time, Eastern European Time, and further Eastern European time zones to all meet. When Norway follows Central European Standard Time, this means that Norway is at GMT, or Greenwich Mean Time, the standard used to reconcile all time zones, +1. At the same point in the year, Finland finds itself at GMT +2, while the part of Russia bordering these countries is GMT +3. Between the countries of Poland and Ukraine, there famously was cross-border land art created by the artist Jaroslav Kočara in 2011 that was designed to symbolically erase the divisions between the two countries. This land art was made on a stretch of farmland shared by Hradčice, Poland, and Varech, Ukraine. The landscape-based art between the countries include images of a giant fish called a crop circle fish, plowed in turf, which was meant to show the unity between the countries. Kočara created the temporary fish through planting seeds in a fish-shaped design. According to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, there have been more than 7.7 million people who have fled Ukraine following Russia's invasion of the country, and many Ukrainians have sought refuge in neighboring countries like Poland. Over 4 million have migrated to Poland, and even more have moved to Romania, Russia, Hungary, Moldova, Slovakia, and Belarus. The border between Norway and Sweden is emphasized as a place with cross-border mobility and flourishing trade, with more than 25,000 people commuting over the border to get to work each day. Norway and Sweden's border is said to be efficient and smooth running, which is surprising given the common disputes and heavy guarding between borders. The countries have large cultural similarities, an ability to understand each other's languages, and share an intertwined history, having been united from 1814 to 1905. There is much cooperation between Norway and Sweden, which are part of a passport union started in the 1950s to provide ID-free travel between them and the other Nordic states, Denmark, Finland, and Iceland. Between Norway and Sweden, there has been a thin strip of trees removed to mark the national border. Given the snow that accumulates there, snowmobilers often use the path regularly. The border between Italy and Switzerland also connects to winter sports. The Matterhorn, one of the largest peaks in the Alps, makes up part of the border between the two countries. As a result of climate change and glacial melting, the border has been shifting. Even so, skiers enjoy recreation at the border and on Matterhorn. One of the most elaborate border crossings in Europe is that of Belgium and the Netherlands, which zigzags through Baarle-Nassau, a Dutch town that shares a border between the countries, with its Belgian sister city Baarle-Hertog on the other side. There are over 24 separate pieces of land belonging to Belgium embedded into the Netherlands, kind of like a patchwork quilt, as a result of medieval treaties and exchanges of land from over the years. Each side of the city had between as many as 10 or 20 enclaves of the other country, creating many isolated sections located in Belgium within the Netherlands and vice versa. To keep things running smoothly, the countries decided to define their border by installing white crosses in the pavement across town. These markers are very precise, running through shops, stores, lawns, and a cafe. At one point in time, there was a Dutch law requiring restaurants to close early, but rather than kicking out patrons, servers would move their guests to tables on the Belgian side of the cafe. Elections can also be a challenge, as houses are split by the border as well, so towns determine who lives in which country by where their front door is based. A similar boundary runs between France and Switzerland. In a small village on the border called La Cure, the national boundary divides the town, streets, and even some buildings. Famously, the border also runs through the Hotel Arbet, passing through a honeymoon suite dividing the bed in half. Another unique feature of a European country connects Spain to Portugal. At the border, people can take a zipline from Spain into Portugal. The zipline is the first cross-border zipline, which crosses over the Guadiana River. The Minho River also forms part of the border between Spain and Portugal. Seems like a fun border crossing if you ask me. Clearly, there are many intriguing borders present in Europe, many of which are freely crossed. Whether snowmobilers enjoy the paths or buildings and cafes are split in half, Europe has many unique borders to explore. But given that many of these unique borders were formed by treaties and contracts from several centuries ago, the New World shouldn't have any weird borders, right? Well, in North America, there are also some pretty incredible and interesting borders for us to explore. The US-Canada border in particular stands out, given its considerable length, but also because of what is known as the slash, which divides the countries visually. The border between the United States and Canada is the longest border in the world, stretching from Maine to Alaska and spanning through land, sea, and open wilderness. With so much wilderness, you might guess that this border would be left untouched by people, but this isn't the case. In fact, every year, American taxpayers pay, on average, half a cent to the International Boundary Commission solely to deforest every inch of the US-Canada border. With an annual budget totaling $1.4 million, the International Boundary Commission ensures that there is a clear line marking the US-Canada border. This line is known as the slash and is a treeless zone that is 20 feet wide and covers everything from isolated islands to steep hillsides. The slash is predominantly so remote that no one will ever visit the border, but the boundary is painstakingly maintained once every 6 years through hours of manual labor. The initial goal of the slash was to make sure the average person would know they are on the border. Beginning in the 1800s, when the western land section of the US and Canada border was set at the 49th parallel. The countries cut the slash and over 8,000 border markers were set out, with most still present today. However, without a GPS system back then, the border markers were inadvertently placed in a zigzag pattern, straying north or south from the official border by an average of 295 feet. Without sufficient cartography, the border came to have irregular cutoffs, such as Point Roberts and the Northwest Angle. Regardless of these errors, the slash is a popular destination for many who appreciate its geographical history. Another famously bizarre point in the border between the United States and Canada is at Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls is a massive, stunning cascade of waterfalls separating New York and Canada, where visitors can get terrific views from either the American or Canadian sides. Border crossing is accessible via car, bike, or by foot on the Rainbow Bridge, which is open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Both sides have attractions to offer and stunning views of the falls, as well as rich culture and history. Clearly, the US-Canada border is quite unlike any other, but it's not the only unique border in North America. The US-Mexico border is actually the most deadly land migration route in the world, with hundreds losing their lives to perilous desert crossings. Last year, the International Organization for Migration recorded 686 deaths and disappearances, but this is limited because there's missing data. The area is very remote and dangerous, with much criminal and gang activity happening there. The 1,951-mile or 3,100-ish kilometer border is the busiest border in the world and is subject to more than 300 million people crossing it every year. Further, some parts of the border look very different on the other side, such as in the crowded urban Tijuana, Mexico, and the more abandoned, remote part of San Diego on the opposite side of the heavily policed border. The dichotomy between Mexican and American cities adjacent to the monitored border and its fences and walls built by American leaders demonstrates just how politicized a border and immigration can be. Needless to say, the southern border of the United States is completely different from the northern border with Canada. Another interesting border for the US is a sea border between the United States and Russia. You might be surprised to learn that two rocky islands, Big Diomede of Siberia and Little Diomede of Alaska, are just 2.4 miles or 3.8 kilometers apart in the Bering Strait. If you swam between the islands, you would jump 21 hours forward or backward in time, depending on which direction you swam. The islands lie on opposite sides of the international date line. Big Diomede is called Tomorrow Island, and Little Diomede is known as Yesterday Island. This border, despite being just a few miles apart, is unique in how far apart these countries are in terms of time. These kinds of irregularities don't end there, though, and even more can be found in Latin America and the Caribbean. In Latin America and the Caribbean, there are also many intriguing borders and boundaries, some natural and some man-made. With 33 countries located in this region of the world, there surely are some borders worth noting. One such border exists between Costa Rica and Panama, which are separated by the Sixahualo River. There are three main locations to cross the border: Paso Canoas in the west, Rio Sereno in the center, and Guabito in the east. To leave Costa Rica, the country imposes an impuesto, a departure tax, that must be paid before exiting the country by land, whether by car, foot, or bus. The tax is $8. The easternmost border crossing between the two countries at Sixaola is located just a few kilometers from the Caribbean Sea. What's unique about this crossing is that there's a rickety old bridge where travelers cross the river. The scenic views appeal to many tourists crossing the easternmost border between Costa Rica and Panama. Another interesting border exists where Argentina, Brazil, and Paraguay meet, known as Tres Fronteras, or the Triple Frontier. Tres Fronteras is a famous border triangle. In this area, the connection of two of the continent's largest rivers, the Iguazu River and the Paraná River, intersect to make a triangular T-shaped border delineating the three countries' boundaries. The Triple Frontier is close to Iguazu Falls and some other natural gems that attract many tourists annually. Although the region is known for high levels of criminal activity, such as drug trafficking, money laundering, and theft of intellectual property, the region is known for being ethnically diverse, with tourists in 3 cities in the 3 different countries converging. The local cities recently constructed a recreational complex where visitors can glimpse neighboring countries, each with an obelisk embellished with the colors of each nation's respective flag. The center is called Ito Tres Fronteras Park and allows tourists to see a 180-degree panoramic view of the surrounding area. At the viewing platform, visitors can see into the thick rainforests of Brazil and Argentina. Slightly south of the tri-point lies the Puente de la Integración, also known as the Integration Bridge, which was inaugurated in 2022. The 760-meter-long bridge connects Paraguay with Brazil, as does the more congested Friendship Bridge that lies upstream. Without a doubt, the triple frontier of Argentina, Brazil, and Paraguay is one of the world's most intriguing borders, both geographically and culturally. Another notable border is that of Haiti and the Dominican Republic, which share a border and an island. Because there's been much more deforestation in Haiti and limited deforestation in the Dominican Republic, an aerial view of the island can be breathtaking. But the geographic divide is not all that stands out at the Haiti-Dominican border. In September of 2023, the Dominican Republic shut all land, air, and sea borders with Haiti over a dispute regarding a canal being constructed on Haitian soil that tapped into a shared river. The diplomatic crisis over the canal diverting water from the river was said to negatively affect Dominican farmers and the local environment. Despite this conflict, there is a strong connection between the neighboring countries at the border. Haiti is the Dominican Republic's third largest trading partner, with $1 billion in exports going to Haiti in 2022 and $11 million in imports, on top of $430 million in informal border trade happening at the border as of 2017. The border between the countries is also associated with illegal border crossings, human trafficking, and contraband sales, which all make the border distinctive. Beyond this, the Dominican Republic has begun to build a 118-mile wall along the border. Clearly, borders are more than mere geological divides between forest and deforestation. They're more than just a wall built to divide countries. Borders are symbols of economic exchange, political conflict, and separation of resources. Like the rigid divide between deforestation and healthy forests seen between the Dominican Republic and Haiti, the same can be observed in an aerial view of Brazil and Bolivia. The heavy deforestation in Brazil compared with the biodiverse forests in Bolivia visibly demonstrate an environmental divergence between the two countries. The Pipiriguazu River separates the two countries and their vastly different-looking forest land. To the south of Brazil and Bolivia's wooded boundary lies the border between Argentina and Chile. There, a much more bizarre boundary marks the border. A statue of Jesus Christ marks the boundary between Argentina and Chile. The statue was unveiled in 1904 as a symbol of peaceful settlement of the border dispute between the countries and is known as Christ the Redeemer of the Andes. It stands at the summit of La Cumbre Pass, located in the Andes Mountains. The statue was commissioned by the Catholic Church and was created by sculptor Mateo Alonso of Buenos Aires. A Spanish inscription reading, "Sooner shall these mountains crumble into dust than Chileans and Argentinians break the peace which at the feet of Christ, the Redeemer, they have sworn to maintain," is located at the bottom of the statue. Clearly, Latin America, like many other parts of the world, is home to many unusual and interesting borders. Whether rivers, statues, or deforestation, there are many ways that boundaries between countries in Latin America look. It's clear that national boundaries can widely differ. In some places, borders are heavily militarized, protected, and contested. Walls, fences, and heavily armed guards all divide the countries from one another. On the other hand, some borders are divided naturally by geological features like mountains and rivers or by stripes of selective deforestation. Some nations are landlocked by other nations, while others are bizarrely integrated with one another. Borders can also uniquely impact our sense of time, skipping hours ahead or behind at different boundaries. At other boundaries, flags, statues, drawn lines, and massive art displays delineate national borders. And in some places, people can freely cross borders between countries, whether by walking, zipline, or bridge. As you can tell, borders look very different in different parts of the world. Borders tell us stories, telling us of relationships between such bordering countries. Borders take many shapes and forms. Perhaps every border is unique in its own way, with no two borders being quite alike.